Hi, welcome to the DIY Photo Organising podcast. I'm Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Simply in Order Photo Organising. Imagine you can find any photo at any time at the click of a button. We are here to show you how.
So let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to our episode 5, which is golden rule number 4, sort and organise your photos.
Yes, hello. Hey, Chantal. A fun one today.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be good. This is the bulk of it.
We actually have decided to make 2 parts out of this episode. So today we're only going to talk about digital photos.
Yep.
And in the next episode, number 6, we will talk about how to sort and organise the printer photos, because that is a bit different, obviously, and we'll keep that separate.
Fantastic.
So it's not going to be too long.
All right. So what are we going to be talking about today?
So today, now that we have talked through our first 3 golden rules, which is number 1, backup.
Yep.
Golden rule 2 is know your why, and golden rule 3 is how to create a hub.
Yes.
Now we have arrived at sorting and organising.
Fantastic, the fun bit.
Yeah. So you do have your hub, hopefully, after the last episode. We gave you all the information on how to create a hub.
Yep.
And so to start with today, I'll give you a bit of an overview and then we'll dive deep. First of all, we're going to run a backup. And as we learned in golden rule number 1, but then we're also going to create a copy of our hub as it is now after we've created it. And then we'll have to take a very important decision, and that is how are we going to structure our hub? How should that look like in the future? And there's different ways to do that and different structures and mixes of it. So we'll talk in detail about that.
Yeah.
And a big part of sorting and organising is often de-duplicating, because we tend to have tons of duplicates. And there are softwares out there and apps that we can use to help us, because it can be a bit too much to visually compare photos.
Yes, definitely.
And eventually we will have the new hub and merge or move everything into the new hub with the new structure. And that's where we'll continue working on sorting and organising our photos.
Fantastic. Sounds good.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
That's great.
And we have to warn you, it's probably going to be a lot of information to take in, isn't it? Can be a bit confusing, and
there are a few different options, but we're going to put things in the show notes for you. So, and with a few visuals, this one is definitely going to be just sort of a bit of a flow of what the steps are, because I think in this process, this is where people can get quite stuck.
Yes.
And it can be a really big job if you've been putting this off, organising all your photos for some time. You really can have quite a selection and collection and mixture of, that hub that you've created in that gathering process can look a little bit daunting. And some people get started and then they stop and then they start again, and they can get themselves in a bigger mess. So we will put some things. Please have a look at our show notes, and
yes, there's lots of links in them today, and a little gift and some visuals, so it's worth checking out.
Absolutely. All right, so what our first step is. So what we'll have is you will have gone through, or I suggest that you do have a listen to our backup episode on backing up. So that's already done. You've got your 3 backups, 2 different types of devices, and ideally one of those is off-site. So the next thing we're going to do is what you've done in the episode that we've talked about with the golden rule number 3 about creating a hub. We're going to call that in this episode your original hub.
Right, yeah.
So your original hub is where we lovingly call it that mess that has been copied onto, and it's one location and it's got everything that you need to now organise in the one place. So without being too redundant with the whole copying, we're not copying crazy people here, but we do want you actually to make another copy. So what this is not a backup. This is different. The other ones that we were talking about is a backup. That's a backup of everything that you've got and all of those things with your photos in amongst it, but that's called a backup. What we're talking about now in this stage of doing all of that organising is you've got that original hub, and we'd like you to make a copy of that and keep it in a separate location, maybe on an external hard drive. If you'd like to use your computer, just use it on the computer and have a copy of that and call that your working hub. So we leave the original alone. We're going to leave that there, and that really is, it's a great, as personal photo organisers ourselves, you do make changes and then you have to go back and see what was the original files and where it was originally, if you've moved something and you're not quite sure if it was in a folder or was that part of a book that you'd made, or it's really, really good just to leave that original hub that you've created alone. So that's why we're going to leave that alone now. You've created it and it's there. So now you're going to make a copy of that either on an external drive or on the computer and call that your working hub.
Yeah, that's a good point, Fiona, that you mentioned it. You have to rename the folder or to be very clear what's the working one.
And I think these steps, we'll like Chantal mentioned, we'll step this out for you in the show notes. But follow that step, because this is really where you can make a bit of a mess. And so if you've renamed it, you've clearly got original hub, working hub. So then you just leave that one alone and you've got your working one. All right. So the first thing then that we want you to do is, once you've got your working hub done, we have a very important decision to make. Yeah, Chantal. What is that decision that our lovely listeners need to make before they jump into anything? Yeah. What's the next thing?
Yeah, it might actually not be a very hard decision. It's oftentimes it's pretty obvious and people kind of know what to do. So the decision we need to make is, how do we want to structure our future, our new photo hub?
Yeah.
And there's various options how you can do that. Again, as always in photo organising, there's no real right or wrong. So you have to think about your personal preferences, what works for you. And there's no photo organising police. We're not going to come and tell you off if you choose another way. So, and again, this also maybe think back to your original why, because that might help you and make it clearer about how you want to structure your photos. So you also have to think about two things here. You might want to start completely fresh.
Yes, yeah.
I would say from experience, if you're someone who has, for example, not really put your photos on a computer so far, you have created that hub and you have lots of different folders from USBs and camera cards and what have you. So there's no structure or anything going on really. You start afresh, and then that's the one option. The other option is that if you already have the majority or a lot of photos, let's say if you're on Windows, you have your photos in the picture folder and you have already got a structure going in there. And if that structure works for you, use that. You don't have to do it all,
and
start again.
Exactly.
That's not what we want. We don't want to create more work than necessary.
Yeah.
So given that this structure works for you, keep it up and build on that rather than start it all fresh and start moving.
That's right. And I think that decision, that decision will be different clients that I know that I've worked with and the same as you, just say they've got maybe if you're listening and you've got a lot of photos on your phone.
Yes.
And you're wanting to sync, say you're an iPhone user and you're wanting to use iCloud.
Yeah.
That would then be a logical place to start as your library hub. So rather than moving all of those photos into a new place, you can start with that. Yeah. So they'll be on your working hub drive that we're, that folder that we've just created. And then that's where you start.
Yes.
So when we go through these next steps, that's sort of the bulk of what you're going to be working with.
That's right.
But with that other option, if you don't have anything like that, what are some ways that they can start afresh?
So if you start afresh, what most people tend to use is a simple chronological structure, which can be, the top folders could be decade and then the years within that and then the months. That's very simple. For other people, thematical structure works better. I just talked to a friend the other day. She's someone who travelled extensively throughout her life, and she's got obviously a lot of travel photos. So for her, it makes more sense to sort them by theme. So that would be by continent, and then within that by country, and then maybe by year, because she tends to visit the same places more than once.
Yeah, so, that's wonderful.
And for her, that works great. And then there's obviously a mixture of both. So you can mix that up, as I just said, which is a mix of thematical and chronological. Or you can do it the other way around, and that's how personally I do it with the chronological. My basic structure is chronological, but if I had a bigger event, that would be a separate folder. So, for example, it would be, May 2018, and there would be all the snapshots that don't really belong to an event, but then I might have a folder, May 2018, holiday, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So that's a separate folder. And most people, I find, they quite like that. That's the logic.
Yeah.
That's how the brain functions, but not for everyone. So, again, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah, and I think some people probably, when they're going through what they've, put on that original hub anyway, when they've started moving folders and things over, or copying, photos from a hard drive or a, SD card or something. They'll probably naturally see those trends, and then I think it's not a difficult decision, and you can definitely pop us a question on Facebook if you're not quite sure which way to go with. But like Chantal said, that's something that'll be in the show notes. We've got some structures, empty file structures there for them.
That's a little gift for our listeners.
They're welcome
they can use that link and go and download empty structures. And it's all there, so you can do whatever you want to do with it. You can move around folders, rename it. So,
rather than having to create 1991, 1992.
And it actually goes back to 1900. So
I know, it's fantastic.
If you've got historical photos and old family photos, it's all ready for you there.
And really all then they need to do when they follow through these next steps is just to start moving those photos into that structure, and then voila, they're photo organised.
That's right. So just another thing here on that too, we haven't mentioned what happens if you work with a program, if you don't have a structure on that sits on your, in that picture folder, for example, on Windows. If you, for example, on Macs and you use Photos as the default app, and especially if you work with iCloud and your phone photos are synced to your library on your computer, then it's a bit different then, but you can still think about how you want to structure it. By default, it will, of course, be chronological. Yeah. So the latest photos is, at the bottom of the list, but then of course in programs like that you can create your own folders and albums and smart folders and what have you. Yeah, we're not going to go into that now. That
maybe we'll do an episode on that. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will, because lots of people use photos.
We'll do it sooner than later.
Which makes sense. Yeah. And I use it myself.
Me too. So, I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, so that might change things a bit, but the idea is the same. You should have a think how you want to structure your library, whether it's in a program or not. Yeah.
So that's the first decision, your first decision to make.
Right.
Fantastic. So once we've made that decision and we've looked and say you've got yourself all sorted out as far as deciding where you're going to actually have your photos as you're going through this cleanup and organising stage, the first thing that you're going to be doing is getting rid of all those duplicates. Duplicate. So, Chantal, what are some of the options and tools that we can use as far as just so they've got their folders, they've got all their they're in their working hub, and they've got all of those things. Where do they start with this duplication? Obviously, if they've got maybe, I don't know, 50,000 photos in amongst them, they can't look at each one and look in another folder and find another one. Thankfully, we live in a different era now that we can use some great software. So tell us about some of those software.
Yeah, so we're going to I think, list a few tools that we use ourselves.
Yep.
So obviously we used to work with a lot of photos, but I find recently especially that it has become apparently the norm that, a photo hub easily has like 60,000 or more photos. And as you say, that's a bit too much to go through.
Yeah.
So when we work on a Mac, personally I like to use Photo Sweeper, and we'll put the links in the show notes for that, and you can check it out. Again, we're not affiliated in any way with these companies. It's just the tools that we use and most of the professional organisers use. Photo Sweeper is the big one on, for Macs.
Yeah, and it's a very easy to use program.
Yes.
So, like any new software and things like that, it's just getting used to it and reading up on it.
And
but it's fantastic.
What I like about Photo Sweeper, what it does, you can't only compare duplicates or photos when they sit in a photo library. So if you use photos on your Mac, you can use that program, but you can also use it if your photos are just anywhere on your hard drive or in the Finder and don't sit in your photo library.
Yep.
That's completely independent, and it works together. So you could compare if you already have a photo library. Let's say in that case, you've got your main photo library and you have found a few USBs that you have just saved externally, not in that library. You can compare the two.
Right.
And check what is already in my library. If you're lucky, they're all there already, and then you don't have to import them and merge it. So I like that it does both. That's very helpful, I find, oftentimes.
Yeah, me too. And what are some of the ways, some of the options? So when the program starts up and there's a lot, maybe we'll do another episode on how to use Photo Sweeper. No, but
it might be a bit hard without the visuals, really.
True, true. But as far as just how it finds that, what sort of...
Yeah, that's the good thing about these programs. All of them that we mentioned, they don't actually... compare only file names, for example. They do actually look at the photo and compare the photos. So if you have a photo that is duplicate or even triplicate, or more, and they have different file names, but they're the same photo, it will recognize them.
Yeah.
And that's where it really pays off to invest a bit in these softwares, in any of them. And they're not very expensive.
No.
So it's worth, if you feel that you do have hundreds and thousands of duplicates, it's absolutely worth investing in that software.
Yeah, and we find that a lot. I see that people definitely have made a copy and put it on a copy on a copy. And now that you're using this working hub, you'll be able to just search that whole thing. And the other thing too that's great about Photo Sweeper, you really can have a look and see if maybe you've done a screenshot or you've done a low resolution file. Maybe you've taken... emailed it to someone else and then, but you've got the higher resolution of the same photo. And so there's a lot of settings options to just get rid of all of those that are in a certain folder or that are below a certain size, or pick the highest size that you want. And so you can have a look around. It's really not that complicated.
And you can still do the visual check. You can,
absolutely.
It comes up with
up as an option.
And you can look at them and you can manually change things. You can auto-mark them and then delete them. You don't just delete, of course, it's not how it works. Well, you can, but we don't recommend that, I suppose.
No, so we're saying that you'd move that then once they're found, that you'd move them out of the folder and then you'd go through it that way and then put them in a one called duplicates, and then they'll come out of that original on the working hub out of there into this, and then you'll keep going through that process.
And you can also look for similar photos rather than just exact duplicates. I find that's quite helpful when you have bursts, for example, where you've got like 10 very similar photos, so it would come up with them and you pick the best and delete the rest.
It's a really good it's a really good
so there's heaps of different settings
way to do that.
Have you used another one, Fiona, that you like?
Look, there's a few others. We've got Power Photos, which is that's a Mac only software. That one only does libraries. So if you're looking at photo library for Mac in Photos, and sometimes what I'll find that happens, and you may be in this situation too if you're listening, that you've got maybe you've upgraded your computer or you've got a hard drive that you've backed up that library, and then you've got another library and you just want to compare what's in what. And so it's just a great program for that. So it goes in and looks at those. And, again, you've got a lot of different options and to sort through those and then, again, move them out. But our goal here when you're going through this the de-duplication process is really just as you're going through on that working hub, in that working photo hub, to move them out, to move those photos out of the folders, the ones that are duplicates. And so you may try one of these programs, Photo Sweeper, and you know this. We definitely do use more than just one program. And then you can also then do a manual look. Look, no program that we're suggesting here is foolproof.
Yes,
unfortunately.
Yes. No, they're not.
It'd be very helpful if it was, but they're not. And so, look, for a number of different reasons, it doesn't always find that. So don't. What we would say as a best practice is don't just rely on that. Run them through. Look at all the different options in some of these programs, and then. Obviously, though, you will need to do a visual look through at the end, but you might have got rid of 20,000. It definitely saves you a lot. I mean, the programs really are fantastic. But just know that they're not foolproof, unfortunately. They can be fooled. But another program is Gemini 2. And, again, we'll put the links on in the show notes. That's Mac, and that one does documents and photos, so it's just something else to bear in mind that you might be able to use that, for your other parts of your computer stuff. But we're obviously talking about photos, but this is, it's a great program for that. And it also does the libraries, like we're talking about, and no libraries. One of the things when you're looking at downloading any of these programs with Gemini 2, we can recommend using Clean My Mac.
Yes, I love that.
And so that's just, while you're in the cleanup mode on your photos, why don't you jump in and do the rest of your computer too, but work on your photos first. They're more fun. And one of the other programs, this is a Windows-based one. This is a fantastic program. I know, Chantal, you use this one quite a bit too, Duplicate Cleaner Pro. And, again, you can bundle that in with Clean My PC. Which is another program. So, again, just a Windows-based option when you're going through those.
So that's a really good one.
So they're good. All right, so have a little look around at some of those de-duplication. We don't want to duplicate anymore. De-duplication programs, and that's really that first step in this organising. Just move out your duplicates. Once that's done, we move on to the very next important step, and that is going to be merging the photos into what you've made that decision as the final file structure. We're going to be moving photos into that file structure. So, look, it's really not that complicated, but the best advice that we have for you listening here is get yourself that logbook. And as you're going through these processes with your de-duplicating and merging, just really keep a track of it, because it isn't something that can be done in an hour. Maybe it is if you haven't got that many photos.
Yes,
that'd be great,
possibly.
actually. But often this does take quite a bit of time, and programs can run. You might set it on your computer to run overnight, and then you come back in the morning and you think, what was I searching, what was I actually de-duplicating, which folder was I working on, and that logbook's really good, especially when you're coming into this next merging section.
That's right, yeah.
So with your merging, really it's just a matter of then bringing those photos, once you've gone through and de-duplicated on your working hub, you'll have a folder that will have what's been taken out, your duplicates, and then you'll be left with photos that need to be merged into this new structure. So if you've decided to use the file structures, or start afresh, maybe start a brand new fresh iPhoto library, or start a new file system just in folders, either one, whichever way you've chosen, then this is when you'll start moving those into those folders or into that photo program. So far we've done our de-duplicating, and then we're doing our merging. So once we've done that, Chantal, that sounds like it should take 10 minutes. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Oh, my goodness. But anyway, make it sound so easy. I know. Be patient with the process. So once that's happened, Chantal, what's the next step?
So now we've actually we've done a lot. If you're here and you've done all that, you've achieved a massive amount. So you basically have...
Yeah, round of applause.
Do a happy dance.
Do a happy dance,
It's not quite finished yet.
No.
But it's a great
But it's a good start.
Our next step is the actual sorting and organising. So by merging it and moving it into that folder structure, you've sorted it into that structure. So what do we do next? We're going to clean up.
Yeah.
You already have deleted a lot of duplicates if you had them. Not everybody has. And the next step is to really actually look at your photos and declutter.
Yeah.
Clean that thing up. You don't need 60,000 photos over a span of 10 years. That's a lot of photos.
It is.
Again, there's no right or wrong.
Exactly. They may have traveled.
If you're a pro photographer, that's,
But if it's all of the one backyard that has, grass growing, and then look, we're not. You can do whatever you like.
Yes, of course.
But the end result definitely is photos that you can enjoy and go back to that golden rule of finding out the why.
Yes. Yeah.
And this next step, is a really important
and that's where the why is important to get back to, and to remind yourself what you want with your photos in the end, because that will help you to decide which ones you're going to keep and which ones you're going to cull.
That's right. And they might go down from 60,000 to 20,000. This is a process, really, and that will depend on what that goal is. Yeah.
And it's some of them are really obvious, like if you've got the eyes closed on a photo, that can probably go. If it's blurry, overexposed, underexposed, whatever. If you've got 20 similar ones, like from a boost, keep one. You don't need the 20. And there's just there's a lot of different categories that don't really belong in a photo collection either. For example, screenshots. Often I find screenshots, they don't belong in a family photo collection.
And often the shot of the screen was done for a purpose that was a temporary, and then they moved on.
Go.
And then if it was something particular, then they keep them in a folder. But usually that kind of thing.
That's what I tend to recommend to people with photos like this, the screenshots, or if you take photos that serve as a reminder, a book cover of a book that you'd like to read or stuff like that. In my view, it doesn't really belong into family collection. So I recommend, if you want to keep it, move it out in, Evernote or whatever you use as a note-taking thingy, whatever. Or keep it in your hub, but, maybe in a different folder, in a separate folder.
Yeah, called, books to read, books to watch, if they've seen something.
So that's what we're doing now, deleting, culling, possibly moving a few things again if you find they're not in the right spot. And then before we kind of end this whole chapter, what we also going to do, and this can happen, by the way, while you cull and go through the photos, you can choose your favourites.
Yep.
We're not going to talk about keywording and other fancy stuff that you can do that helps you later on, but as a minimum, we kind of feel choosing your favourites, that's a good way to
and that's right.
Organise and sort
talk
your
about
photos.
all those keywords as we're going to do another episode on that, because it really and that's a bit more in depth. But for this sort of an overview, really, of that of this golden rule of doing that sort and organise. Yeah, your favourite. And so, how would you just as a quick tip on favourites? I mean, most. People may know how to use it, but if it's in a file structure?
Yeah, it's easy with Mac. You just, you click on that little heart on the photo and you've got your favourite. In Windows, you can, Windows uses a star rating, so your favourite could be the 5-star, and you can do that in batches too if you see more than one photo at once, and you just select them and you all give them the same star rating, and that already will make it easier in the future for you. If you search for photos, you can search for only your favourites, and then there you go, you've got them there. So that's a simple step to do. That's a lot simpler than adding keywords and tags, obviously, and doesn't take too much time since you already added going through them to cull and delete. You can just do that at the same time, really, I think.
Fantastic. Absolutely. That's wonderful. That is, it sounds so easy. I'm going to go do mine. No, I've already got mine done, Chantal, of course.
Time consuming.
I know.
And again, do use that logbook, that really, because it's not done in an afternoon.
Yeah, that's true.
But it is worth doing it. And once you have it, it's great.
So good. And so much fun then, as far as just making quick albums and organising, kids going through grade 6 and they've got to select that. Yeah, absolutely. Select different photos from different years, and really there's so many benefits of just having, we know it's a bit of a time-consuming process, but obviously you're listening to this podcast for a reason. You found us somehow. And so it's got to do with your photos, and we really hope that this has been a helpful episode to be able to just take those next steps, really deal with those big issues, step through these golden rules in a really systematic way, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Dealing with a lot of photos can be. But there's just follow these few steps and ask us questions as we go along, and, on Facebook or through our websites, and email us. But so just as a quick summary, we're asking in this episode we're suggesting that what you do next is to do your backup, do your golden rules number 1, which is your 3-2-1 of your backup of everything. Then you're going to do the hub that your original hub that you've done from your golden rule number 3. Mm-hmm. Make a copy of that and call that your working hub. And then once you've done that, you start doing your deduplicating, merging those photos into the structure that you've decided, and then sort and organise them. Get rid of those. Get rid of those duplicates. Make some favourites if you'd like to. Hang out for our episode on keywording and get all fancy. You can go and pop over and listen to that one once it's up. So, we really wish you all the best. This is just, if you've come this far and you really are going through it, you will feel such a sense of relief knowing that now when you want to sit down and go through your photos, you can just delete those ones once they're all in that one spot, and you've got rid of all the duplicates, or that they're at least able to be sorted and managed and sort of favorited in the one location. It's very freeing, I think, for people to really feel that sense of order, even just getting this far, and then being able to really jump into some of those projects that they've got as to why they're doing this in the first place. Wonderful. Well, thanks, Chantal. As always, it's a pleasure.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of DIY Photo Organising, and we look forward to speaking to you and seeing you online on our Facebook page, and until the next episode, we'll see you soon.
Yes. See you then.
Bye.
Bye. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of DIY photo organising and found some inspiration, useful tips and strategies to support your photo projects.
We'd love to invite you to pop over to our Facebook page, DIY Photo Organising, and we welcome your questions, feedback and any future topics that you'd like us to cover. If there is someone you'd love to share this with, please click on share to help others take control of their photos too. Remember, have a look through our show notes for links to helpful information. I'm Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Simply in Order Photo Organising. And remember, we believe in you and you can do this.